Hey there, and welcome into The Zone. I'm Johnny Congdon filling in for Jeff Spiegel. Guys, what kind of backup quarterback performance do you think I have in store today? Is this Brady coming in for Bledsoe, or instead, am I Brian Hoyer being instructed to hand the ball off a dozen times and then take a knee?
Well, first of all, Spiegel will always be Brady, so I see this as Matt Castle. You're about to get a big payday.
As long as you get your win at the end of the day, that's all Bill Kelsey's caring about.
It's a two-chin strap show. We're playing all four quarters, so let's kick this thing off. You're inside The Zone.
From the ABC 3340 sports team, this is The Zone.
You know, obviously we're on the bubble, and we've done some really good things this year. We won a series from Texas A&M. We beat Arkansas 3 out of 4, split 4 games with Georgia.
There's only 4 teams standing in their way of competing in Omaha once again. You'll have 3 other teams in a regional that you got to figure out how to navigate through, and then 1.
The SEC baseball tournament wrapped up this afternoon with Tennessee taking home the crown. But for Alabama and Auburn, the two situations couldn't have been any more different. The Tigers are already a shoo-in for the NCAA tournament, so their disappointing SEC tournament exit doesn't sting quite as bad. As for the Crimson Tide, however, well, they went an encouraging 2-2 in Hoover, but they still sit right on the bubble. Doug, did Brad Bohannon's team do enough this past week to squeak into the field of 64?
I think they did with the first 2 wins, and the way they played, the way they came out hitting. The key metric for them, strength of schedule, is 3rd in the country. Before they lost the last 2, they were in just about everybody's projection.
Yeah, I think that the 3rd win would have definitely secured it. Nothing like Alabama being on the bubble. We're used to it. But, you know, I do think Kentucky's performances might have been a little bit, you know, bad for Alabama, but I still think they get in at the end of the day.
Sure. Let's talk about this upcoming regional from an Auburn perspective. Sure, they didn't enter the SEC tournament desperate for victories like Alabama did. However, that lineup didn't have much pop in it against Kentucky, and now, well, they have to wait for over a week just to play another game. Do you still have confidence the Tigers can go on a run in a regional?
I still think they're a top 10 team when everything's going well. My fear is they may have peaked about a month ago. Sonny D, teams have kind of figured out how to pitch him, but this is still an awfully good team, and getting away from the SEC should help.
Yeah, I do think that, I mean, obviously they sputtered down the stretch. I think they were 3-7 against teams not from Alabama, 5-0 in state there down the stretch. But I think they're good enough to get the host. They deserve to host a regional still, and that's going to help get some little bit momentum back. They get out of the regional, I think they make it to Omaha.
All right, last question on the topic. Let's say, for argument's sake, the Crimson Tide, they squeak in, they're in the tournament. Who goes further in this NCAA tournament, Alabama or Auburn?
No, Auburn's a much better team.
Sure. Yeah, it's going to be Auburn. Auburn's going to go further
Auburn.
If Alabama gets in.
You heard it here first. Auburn's going further. Hey, let's stick with the Southeastern Conference now, but head from the diamond to the gridiron, where later this week, SEC coaches and athletic directors will head for the beautiful white sandy beaches of Destin, Florida for SEC meetings. Too bad there's nothing to talk about, right? Wait, no, on second thought, the never-ending soap opera that is this football offseason will continue to unfold in the Sunshine State. But before we jump into all that Saban and Jimbo drama again, the SEC is discussing their own playoff, an 8-team model per the report. However, there are no immediate plans moving forward. SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey said there's nearly among 40 different proposals that the SEC was considering, but as of now, they're not doing anything yet. Do you like the idea of a conference playoff?
No, this is just a power play. I can't get excited about that Alabama-Mississippi State quarterfinal. It just doesn't do anything for me. Listen, they may get the TV ratings, but it's not going to drive – I don't think it'll draw interest among SEC people.
I like the idea. I don't like how they're proposing. I don't like the proposals. I don't like the system that they have in there. If anything, I could see a 6-team. I'm not trying to add 3 games into an SEC schedule when you already have SEC teams who beat up on each other before the playoff starts anyway.
Sure. It's one of the toughest gauntlets in all of sports, not just professional or college. Of course, we have to touch on this one last time. It's the story that won't die. Nick Saban, Jimbo Fisher, they've been feuding for it feels like an eternity. It's only been 2 weeks. However, do you feel like when they're in the room together, is that war of words going to continue, or they're going to shake hands, maybe hug it out, sing Kumbaya, build a sandcastle or 2 down the beach?
They won't sing Kumbaya, but it'll be cordial. Listen, I don't think this bothered Saban one bit. I mean, Saban does not take things personally. This was a kind of cry for help for where football is going. If it doesn't get changed, he's going to take advantage of it too. Jimbo is the one with the hard feelings. He's not going to get over it, but I think in this situation he'll muster enough just to be nice.
Yeah, I think they're going to be okay at the end of the day, but I'm more done with this situation than Jimbo's done with Nick. Okay, so like, I'm good with the finishing it right here. They can talk, they can shake hands at the 50-yard line, and they don't need to be friends. I'm fine.
To be a fly on the wall in that, man, I wish they'd let a camera down there. Plus, I just want to go hang out in Destin, Florida for the week. Hey, let's stick in the SEC, but let's focus on the Plains for a moment, where questions are beginning to emerge of why Auburn Athletic Director Alan Green has yet to receive an extension from the university. Last week, Green met with new Auburn University President Chris Roberts. Roberts wants to lay the land during his evaluations of not just Auburn's athletic department, but the entire university as a whole now that he's the head decision maker. Green's contract is set to expire on January the 31st of 2023. My question to the two of you, will Green still be the AD of the Tigers after that expiration date?
No, I mean, he's basically been dead man walking for 2 years. He knows it. He's tried to get out of there. The only thing that would change that is if Brian Harsin goes out and has just a miraculous season, and that's not happening.
Yeah, I would say I lean towards, yes, he will still be there, but that's only because there can be so much decided between, in the next 8 months. Come January, that decision is going to be a whole lot more clear, and a lot of it has to do with football season.
What would you say Green's crowning achievement has been since he's taken over the reins in Auburn, if he has one at all?
Ironically, I think it's the thing that's gotten him in trouble. The Olympic sports coaches really complained that he had his thumb too much on the spending, but he has really kind of got the economic side back in good grace.
Yeah, he doesn't have the hires that you'd want maybe on your record as an AD, but he did get that contract extension with Bruce Pearl done, and that whole moment with the video on Twitter, that was a big deal for the Auburn fan base, so that might be a good moment for him.
Real quick, how big is the Penn State game? Is that a must-win for both Brian Harsin and Alan Green? Does everything ride on that one game?
No, but I think they've got to come out of the month 4-1. Sure. They got to go 4-1 with those first 5 games.
Yeah, obviously a win's going to help. A loss is pretty bad at home.
Well, the world of recruiting has never felt more like the Wild West. And when everyone thinks one kid's going to zig, well, he ends up zagging. And when many thought that 4-star quarterback Eli Holstein was College Station bound, well, instead he fancies himself some crimson and will soon be calling Tuscaloosa home. Holstein threw for over 3,200 yards and 30 touchdowns last season and rushed for over 500 of them. Guys, I know Bama fans are dreaming of signing another quarterback from the state of Louisiana. So, is this signing insurance if Saban and staff can't get Arch Manning to Tuscaloosa?
No, this is the guy they wanted all along, and I think it's also kind of a sign they were ready to move on.
Yeah, I don't think necessarily recruiting insurance is a thing anymore because you just pile up as many good recruits as you can. If they get both of them, great. If not, get one of them, you're happy too. Someone's going to transfer at the end of the day, even if you get both of them anyway. So I think the recruiting insurance might not be a thing anymore.
Yeah, it's a real good problem to have. Ty Simpson also heading down from Tennessee. He's going to be competing for that job for years to come. 3-4 years down the line, what do we think we're going to be saying between Holstein and Manning? Are we going to think back years later and say, hey, what was the big deal with Arch Manning?
Remember, Peyton signed at the same time as a kid named Brandon Stewart. They're both top 10 quarterbacks. Both went to Tennessee. Stewart actually was ahead of Peyton on the depth chart at first. Peyton took over. We never heard from Stewart again. I think we're going to hear from both these guys. They'll just come from different directions.
It's always hard to tell at this point in their careers, but I don't think we're ever going to look back and think, why were we talking about Arch Manning? We know why we're talking about Arch Manning. It's the main name. No, I mean, the kid's good in his own right, but he's got the stage and the spotlight because of his last name.
Now to one of the most talked about stories in all of professional sports this past week that involved two guys with local ties. White Sox shortstop and Hillcrest High School alum Tim Anderson Jr. says that there was no inside joke between he and former Auburn Tiger and current New York Yankee third baseman Josh Donaldson regarding Donaldson calling Anderson Jackie over the weekend in reference to Jackie Robinson. Guys, Donaldson tried to explain the situation away, but did he come off a little more foolish, or do you feel like this was a misunderstanding?
I think he came off foolish, but first of all, these are two of the biggest smack talkers in all of baseball, and they feed by getting under somebody's skin. So I think that's just how they play the game.
Yeah, I obviously didn't love the comment, and that's coming from a Yankees fan, but then when he came out and wanted to apologize, I think it only made it worse because his apology wasn't really an apology. He called it a misunderstanding, which is putting blame on the other guy to begin with in the first one. So I think he's more in the wrong. Only one game just blows my mind.
You guys feel like this is something that's been irreparable damage, that they can't come back for this? Did this cut a little too deep where these guys can't shake hands and move on from this?
Well, my understanding, I read where Tim Anderson called himself the new Jackie. I don't think there was anything, I think he was just teasing him. I don't think there was anything malicious about this.
I think that might have been the thought process for Josh Donaldson, but at the end of the day, if they're not that close,
sure,
you can't make that kind of comment and expect it to just go away. I think it might be done for the two of them.
Sure. You only got a 1-game suspension. I thought maybe a little longer, but nonetheless, that's what he gets. Hey, coming up on The Zone, Alabama has a new gymnastics head coach, and the theme of that introductory press conference stressed one thing: compete for national championships. And one of the most bizarre feuds in Major League Baseball has nothing to do with baseball whatsoever. We'll explain next here in The Zone.
Alabama Gymnastics is a family, and it's a program where young women can find joy in their gymnastics and learn the art of teamwork, pulling together to accomplish a common goal. And at Alabama, that goal is to compete for championships.
Key phrase there: compete for championships. And athletic director Greg Byrne believes it takes a national champion to build a national championship program back. And that's exactly what Alabama did this week when they introduced Ashley Priest-Johnston as the 7th head coach in the history of Alabama gymnastics program. Priest-Johnston is a 10-time All-American, a 2-time national champion during that 2011 and 2012 stretch. Did Greg Byrne get it right with this hire, I should say?
I don't know, honestly. She's got a good reputation as an assistant coach. But Dana Duckworth had that national championship criteria resume as an athlete herself. I think they needed new blood, and that's what they got.
That's what I think is a little bit interesting about this, that they stay in the family. It's another Sarah Patterson product. I think that's a good thing when you're looking at the program as a whole. But at the end of the day, this one has to work out better than the last one, or they're going to have to go outside the family.
Do you think the success this past year of Auburn's gymnastic program and the bump they got from Suni Lee helped maybe fuel the fire for Alabama to say, hey, we're done just getting there and competing for national championships. We want to start winning them again?
Yeah, I think that's the direct reason. Anytime Auburn has supplanted you when you've dominated them for 40 years, yeah, that gets under your skin.
Yeah, it definitely should put pressure on Alabama. That's how stagnant this program has been over the past few years. They're making it, but they're not getting over the hump, and that's what they need to do.
I was at the press conference. Did you find it telling that Dana Duckworth was not in attendance when they introduced Priest-Johnston?
No, I mean, yeah, it's all in the family, but I don't know many former coaches who go out and hang out and welcome the new guy. They may do it later, but not at the press conference.
Yeah, I don't think that's the telling sign. I think it might be more so that she didn't have one. There wasn't much of a statement by her leaving to begin with, but her not being there, I don't says too much.
Yeah, Alabama gymnastics. I remember when I was there as a freshman, there were more people going to the gymnastics meets than they were going to basketball games. So they get to that program back to a championship level. Who knows? Crazy town when it comes to gymnastics. Tuscaloosa loves themselves some gymnastics. And now, down to one of the most bizarre stories you'll ever see in sports ever. And I mean it. Jock Peterson and Tommy Pham are baseball players. So you would imagine that any confrontation that may arise between the two men would be over baseball, right? Well, you'd be wrong. Late this week, video emerged of Pham slapping Peterson across the face, Will Smith at the Oscars style, over a disagreement about their fantasy football league. You heard me correctly. On Friday, Peterson said that he was accused of cheating, placing a player in injured reserve instead of a free agent. I don't know. I don't play fantasy football. What the heck was this, Doug?
Well, that's in everybody's rules. I mean, you can do that. That's legal move. Well, first of all, if you're that mad, you don't slap him, you punch him. And second of all, I think the commissioner really needs a look in this, because if Tommy Pham's bragging about, being a high roller at the casino and playing high-stakes fantasy football league, the commissioner might want to know a little more about that.
This is the fun kind of bizarre, in my opinion. Like I said, I was over the Jimbo and Saban stuff. I want more of this. I want a live scoreboard of their fantasy draft and a live updates from next year's season, as long as they stay in the same league. I need more of this story in my life.
You're monitoring the waiver wire every week.
I want to keep seeing the group text.
Yes, that's all I need.
Well, from watching The Last Dance, the Michael Jordan documentary that the nation was captivated by at the height of the pandemic, I think really opened people's eyes to just see the level of gambling that involves in professional sports on these team buses, on these team planes. Do you feel like an incident like this maybe gets some of the bigwigs in Major League Baseball, some of these big sports, to say, hey, knock it off when it comes to some of this gambling?
They need to, because, again, if you put yourself in a compromising situation, that's where you affect the outcome of games, and we've seen that before.
Yeah, I do think this certainly shines a light on it, but I'm not so sure it does anything, because they didn't try to hide it. This obviously shows everyone in that clubhouse kind of knows what goes on in there, and people who are probably higher up in that clubhouse know goes on there. So
Rob Manfred can suspend him. I don't care what anybody says. This was good for Major League Baseball. People wanted to see this.
Oh,
this was controversial.
The week. Yeah,
anytime
absolutely.
we're talking about baseball during the NHL playoffs, during the NBA playoffs, and during everything that's going on in college football, on the zone, we love talking baseball. Hey, coming up on the zone, speaking of the zone, from the best former Alabama quarterback, well, I thought was the best just because he went to my Patriots, but he's headed to New England. Mac Jones, of course, Tua Tagovailoa. He's the quarterback for the Miami Dolphins. Who's going to have the better season? We're talking AFC East quarterbacks and so much more coming up next on The Zone. Welcome back into The Zone. It's time to play Pick'em, and we start with a pair of Bama quarterbacks in the AFC East. Both New England Patriots quarterback Mac Jones and Miami Dolphins signal caller Tua Tagovailoa are both present and accounted for at their respective OTAs. Jones, by all accounts, looks noticeably slimmer and more fit. And earlier this week, newly acquired wideout Tyreek Hill described Tua's passes as, quote, probably one of the prettiest balls I've ever caught in my entire life. Mac or Tua, pick 'em. Who is the better 2022 season?
Okay, don't tell Ryan I said this. but I'm going with Tua because he got a quarterback whisperer for a coach and the best playmaker in the NFL.
Yeah, I was gonna go with Tua also. Despite Bill Belichick, we're sitting here with a Patriots fan too, but I'm going Tua. He's got a better cast.
Let's head to the Petty Olympics now, where after turning in one of the best rounds of golf of his life, Alabama alum and two-time PGA champion Justin Thomas couldn't help but take a shot at Texas A&M head coach Jimbo Fisher. When he was asked if he'd absorbed Saban's 24-hour rule after winning the major, he explained, well, Fisher's rule is, well, he has to actually win something to have a rule. In the past week of the SEC tournament, while playing Bama, A&M's dugout had this printed-out photo of Fisher saying, our coach. All right, who's pettier, guys?
I'm going with Justin because he's the adult in the room, but that was the better zinger, too.
Yeah, Justin's is more petty for sure. I don't even get the dugout picture thing. It's not petty. I just don't get it.
This week, High School Football America ranked their top 75 programs in the country. 3 Alabama schools cracked to 75. 2 Birmingham area schools reside in the top 20. Thompson comes in at 16. Hoover, 2 spots behind them at 18. Question is, over, say, the next 5 years, who would you rather be, Thompson or Hoover?
I think Thompson's going to continue to run away from everybody else because the population's moving there, the players are moving there, and I don't think the coach is going anywhere.
Yeah, over the next 5 years, I'm saying Thompson, but I will still say Hoover has the edge on an all-time program.
They're just a juggernaut, both of them. What a good problem to have. Hey, last up, Brady Gronk. They go together like salt and pepper, peanut butter and jelly, but does their chemistry on the football field translate to the baseball diamond? Brady posting this video to his social media of him taking a little batting practice. Gronkowski shagging his fly balls. Guys, pick 'em. Bases loaded, 3-2 count, down a run in Game 7 of the World Series. 2 outs. Who do you want at the dish? Brady or Gronk?
Brady's the better player, but Gronk leans over the dish and takes one for the team.
That's what I'm saying. He's big. That's a big target. He's going to get a hit by pitch. That's your best chance in a Major League Baseball game.
Gronk will get hit and say thank you. That's how crazy he is. Coming up on The Zone, the bottom line. Doug with more on Jock Peterson and Tommy Phan's fantasy football beef. Caleb on the World's Game, and me on the passing of an iconic movie star gone far too soon. The bottom line is next, right here on The Zone. It's time for the bottom line, brought to you by Moe's. And let's start with Doug.
It was a slap heard around the world. Cincinnati Red Tommy Pham, still ticked about last season's fantasy football season, confronted Jock Peterson, accused him of cheating, and popped him in front of teammates and media. What in the world? To make this strange story more bizarre, Peterson had group text from the league and a screenshot of the rules, proving you don't mess with Jock. You don't pitch to him in the postseason.
You give me this kind of stage, and I'm going to talk about soccer in Birmingham, okay? Attendance for Legion games this year have been up at the new Protective Stadium. But still, getting that vintage soccer atmosphere has been a little difficult at times. That's not going to be the case for their next home game. They're going to host rival Memphis 901 FC on June 8th. It's a Wednesday night, but you're still not going to want to miss it. And once you go to one game, you're going to get hooked. Plus, you get to show that other team what playing in a real stadium is like, as opposed to playing in one that's made for a minor league baseball team.
In sports, we often talk about GOATs, greatest of all time, Brady, Gretzky, Jordan. But this week, we lost the star of the GOAT movie. Ray Liotta's performance of Henry Hill in Goodfellas is on par with anything Brady ever did in a Super Bowl, any goal Gretzky ever scored in a Game 7, and that Coco Cabana tracking shot scene, well, that might just edge out Jordan's shot on ELO in 1989. Ray Liotta didn't just own every scene he was in, he simply just took it. Ray Liotta, gone far too soon at 67 years old. That's our show for tonight. Jeff's going to be back here next week. Thank God. I know everyone at home is going to want to see that.
Good job.
For Doug, for Caleb, thank you so much, everybody. See you next week right here in The Zone.